Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adventures Through the Mind. This is a podcast that features topics relevant and related to psychedelic culture, medicine, spirituality, and research, and always with the underlying question of how can we work with and through our psychedelic experiences to become better people, not just for ourselves, but for all those with whom we are nested in relationship, presently and across time, human and non-human alike. I'm your host, as always, James W. Jesso. Our guest for this episode is Charley Wininger. Charley is a retired psychotherapist out of New York City who wrote a book called Listening to Ecstasy, The Transformative Power of MDMA. He also, several years ago, got kind of famously recognized as the love doctor for his discussions on MDMA and couples therapy. But he's been on the show here, Adventures of the Mind, 3 times previously, all about MDMA for the most part, except for the Psychedelic Cafe. He was here for episode 134, discussing MDMA for couples work. He was here on episode 150 with his partner Shelley, talking about sort of group MDMA experiences to support the recently bereaved. And like I said, Psychedelic Cafe number 9, I believe, where we asked the question of why does our sense of connection matter, which included some discussion about MDMA, but wasn't explicitly about MDMA. Today, he's back on the show, and he's going to be talking with us about group MDMA experiences, or group roles, as we're going to call it throughout the course of the interview. His knowledge and experience on this matter comes from helping to run and organize large group roles in New York City over the past 20 years, with sometimes groups as large as 75 people. So he's got a lot of experience with how to set these things up such that they go well, such that they can serve personal and collective healing, community, belonging, and just better our lives personally, socially, and culturally. And the first part of the interview is going to go pretty general into MDMA, what it is, how it works, and its kind of, I guess, therapeutic and cultural place presently and impact over time. But the bulk of the interview is going to be very practical. It's going to be very much about what is a group role, what does it function, or what is its function, what could it offer us, and how, if we so choose to do so, on our own accord, of course, no recommendations or suggestions to consume illegal substances here. But if we choose to have a group role, how can we set that up such that it goes well, it goes safely, and it can offer us all the benefits that it could potentially offer us, again, personally, collectively, socially. We're going to talk about who to invite, who not to invite, where to do it, what to include, what to exclude, safety protocols, and just a whole number of things. Like I said, the bulk of the interview is just extremely practical discussion on group MDMA roles. Group MDMA experiences or group roles. Before we get into it, I normally save this for the middle, but I'm going to include it now so the interview can play out uninterrupted. I earn an income producing this podcast through my patrons on Patreon. This is my job. This is the thing that I dedicate my waking hours to, this and the sort of larger body of work that supports it. This is how I pay my bills. This is how I literally pay to have this podcast release. It's not free. I put a lot of time and money into good hardware, good software, and services that allow me to record, host, distribute, etc. This is my job. This is what I invest in, and this is what I earn an income from, a living from. My patrons on Patreon make that possible, and I thank you deeply for that. I couldn't be doing this without you in the way that I am, and I, like I said, couldn't be more grateful for the voluntary financial contributions you make to this work. The people whose names are listed on the screen here on YouTube or in the description of this episode give significantly, some of which for a long time, so their name in the credits is an extra thank you for that. And if you listening would like to have your name in the credits, or just are generally thinking that it, might make sense for you to support the expenses of producing this show, you can become my patron as well by heading to patreon.com/James W. Jesso, Jesso. A link to that will be in the show notes to this episode, in the description of this episode, wherever you're checking it out, or in the show notes at jameswjesso.com. And if pledging once a month does not make sense for you, that's fine. If you would like to toss me a one-time tip via PayPal or Ko-Fi, I think it's maybe pronounced coffee, Ko-Fi, coffee, or crypto, if that's still your thing. I also have links to one-time donations to the show in the description as well. And I would very much appreciate you doing so. If you don't have any money to contribute, well, you already have the show for free. Don't worry about it. Enjoy, embrace it, and maybe engage the content in some way to give back with a likes, a thumbs up, a subscribe/follow wherever you're on right now. That would be helpful as well. And that's all for the intro. Let's get into our conversation, our interview with Charley Wininger on how to facilitate group roles with MDMA here on Adventures to the Mind, episode 203. Enjoy. Charley Wininger, welcome back to Adventures Through the Mind.
Well, it's great to be back here, Jess. It's James. It's really great to be back here. This is my third time on your show, and I feel honored every time.
Well, same. I feel honored that you have offered me your time. I mean, more than just three. I think you were also present for a psychedelic cafe that we did, which I
Hmm.
think would make for four. And you and I even ran an event once. We ran a one-off event about I think it was Love, Sex, and Drugs, I think it was called.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. That was a good one.
Yes. I don't
So
know which I prefer more.
why not all three? Uh, which I guess was part of that event. But we'll leave that aside.
Okay.
Today, you're on the show to talk about something deeply related to the previous two times you were on, or two times you were on for a dedicated interview.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was talking about MDMA for couples predominantly, and the second one was with your partner Shelley, talking about group MDMA for grief and grieving, so for the recently bereaved.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about group MDMA journeys, intentionally structured group MDMA journeys together, or like a group role. But before we get into that, on the assumption that anyone listening here would appreciate the kind of like early foundation, why don't you let us know, what is MDMA?
MDMA. So, methylene dioxymethamphetamine. And it's a unique compound that was created by Merck in 1916 to as a blood pressure medication, I believe, but they didn't use it. They put it on the shelf until Sasha Shulgin rediscovered it in the 1970s and started giving it to his group of people, as spoken about in Pikal in his book. And most famously, in his book about all his chemicals called Pikal, he has, I believe, hundreds of chemicals in that book, but MDMA is certainly his most famous discovery. And most notably, he gave it to Leo Zeff, who was a local psychotherapist in Northern California, who was retired. And Leo tried it, and his mind was blown. And he said, I don't want to be retired anymore. I want to go back to work with patients using this substance. And that's what he did. And at the time, it was legal. So he started giving it to his couples. He'd give two tablets from Sasha's lab to the couples and say, we call this pill empathy. Take it, go home, come back and report back to me. So if an angel came from above and wanted to develop a medicine that could cure couples of what ails them, or could bond people together. They couldn't have, that angel couldn't have done a better job, because what MDMA does, besides dissolving the ego temporarily, like any other psychedelic, it also increases serotonin, which is the feel good and feel safe drug, and oxytocin, which is the feel connected to those around me hormone. Serotonin isn't a drug, it's a hormone, and so is oxytocin. So the defenses are down, the safety feeling is up, and people want to connect. And it's beautiful for that. And of course, I don't have to tell you the whole history now. It got illegal in 1985. Rick Doblin at MAPS has been trying to make it legal, and of course ran into a big problem with the FDA last year. So it's still illegal. However, my wife and I have been leading group experiences. We've done over 20 years worth of group experiences every year. But do you want me to go into that now, or do you have other questions you want to roll out as more of setting the context here?
Yeah, let's do a couple more context settings before I
Sure.
specifically start asking you what you mean by, like these group experiences or group roles, as we'll call them. So, how is MDMA typically used? Now, you talked about its history with couples counseling, and of course, it's being used in certain respects under the underground for couples, and with good reason, my goodness. Um, but how is it typically used these days, both in the recreational side of things and in its therapeutic contexts?
Okay. So this is how I like to put that. It's a remarkably versatile uh, chemical medicine. And it has a whole spectrum of uses. And on one end of the spectrum, 120 milligrams or a little less can be given and has been given in clinical trials to people with the worst cases of PTSD from combat trauma or victims of sexual abuse, and mixed in with sessions of therapy and a few sessions of MDMA. Most people who go through these trials no longer suffer from PTSD. They cured. On the other end of the spectrum, the same substance, the same dosage, 120 milligrams, can be used to rave the night away in wild abandon with thousands of other people. So it has a whole spectrum of uses. What I've developed is a protocol that's right in the middle of that. We call it serious fun. It's not, it's halfway between the clinic and the club. I can go more into that, but you might have other questions here.
No, I think that's a good place to go in. I mean, once we say recreational, we evoke a kind of dirtiness, which I think
I prefer the
applies in.
word celebrational.
Sure, sure, celebrational. I like to differentiate between uh, entertainment-based use and recreational use, where entertainment is really just like you're there for the light show.
Hmm.
Recreational isn't necessarily therapeutic, but it can be.
Right.
It's like to say that, and it doesn't make it necessarily a bad thing. If I um, play football on an official team and I play football on an official team. I've got a coach. The coach is leading me to get better, and it's really helping me develop my game. Right? That there's a value to that. But if I play recreational football with my friends, that doesn't mean that my recreational football is worse or less valuable in my life or is inherently problematic than doing it under a coach in an official game. And in that
Well,
respect, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
we, in this society and culture, we devalue recreation along with play, fun, and joy,
Hmm.
which can all be transformative experiences when in the right context.
Yeah,
And that's
completely
what I
agree.
talk about in my book, Listening to Ecstasy, about like recreational does get a bad name, a bad rap, but it certainly can be ecstatic and transformational to have such an experience.
And in some ways, like to build a kind of conscientious engagement with MDMA with others could still qualify as recreational without going to the end of entertainment or without going to the end of destructive use, which is also
Right.
possible with recreational use, but not by default. Right?
Correct. Correct.
So, what then? Let's get into this. You said like it's right in the middle of the right in the middle of the rave and the clinician's office. What is a group role?
So Shelley and I started doing these group roles long ago. The first time we had 6 people, just the two of us and 2 other couples. And we didn't really know what we were doing. We were just feeling experimental, and so were they. And I just had a hunch that this would be a good thing to try. And after we dropped the medicine and we was waiting for it to come up, somebody had the suggestion of why don't you turn you pair off into twos, not with your mate, but with somebody else, and just get with them in another part of the room, and one person goes at a time and share with the other person something about yourself that you wouldn't ordinarily want them to know. And everyone sort of gasped at that suggestion, but realized that, yeah, that's a challenge and kind of exciting. So that's what we did, and we realized immediately that this was intuitively just a perfect thing to start such a role because we immediately got to know each other better, and we were willing to take the risk of like divulging something that we wouldn't ordinarily want somebody to know in a social situation. Why? Because not only were we feeling open-hearted, but we knew that the person sitting across from us was also feeling open-hearted and receptive to us. And because they chose to be in this space with us, we knew that they were in a non-judgmental state of mind. So I've kept this as part of the protocol and developed a lot of other parts of the protocol over time. But let me back up here and talk about the protocol, if I may,
Sure, sure, yeah,
because it's all about that. First of all, safety first. That's the most important thing. We've had 6 people, we've had 75 people at a time in the park. Um, but it's always a matter of safety first. And that means that whatever chemicals get used, whatever the only chemical we're using, the only medicine we're using is MDMA. And that's part of the protocol. MDMA and MDMA only. No cannabis, no ketamine, nothing else for the day. And everyone agrees. We also make sure that whoever is using their stash or whatever stash is being used has been thoroughly tested for adulterants and especially, of course, fentanyl. So, and everything has been weighed to the milligram so people know exactly what they're getting. This is all part of the set and setting for the day. The set has to do with the mindset, and people have to feel safe, and these things help people feel safe.
it also helps people stay out of danger because the
Yes,
reality of contaminated drug supply is all too present
that's right.
for everyone.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we have to stay safe above all because we're precious human beings here. We don't want to mess with anything that's going to hurt us or harm us. I've heard too many stories, and I'll talk about that at the end if you want. But not to do with MDMA, but with the abusive combining things and with MDMA and that sort of thing. It can be dangerous. Anyway, so where was I? So The most important part of your setting, this is crucial, is who you're with.
Wait, let's take a pause here because I want to ask those questions, but I feel like I want to get some more context setting, and then we're going to go
Sure,
back to safety, and then we're going to go back to who you're with
sure.
and the sort of practicalities. So to clarify, the question on, what is a group role, right? It seems like what you're saying is that a group role is a collection of people who are intentionally gathered. They intentionally show up, and they are an intentionally selected group of people where those individuals are going to consume MDMA in a context where the sort of intention of the group is to connect with each other as a group. I mean, as individuals as well, but like within this group container. Is that correct?
Well said. Yes, that's exactly right. And that intention is understood by the people by the time they get there. Um, the only people I would choose are people who could play that game, who would be happy and understand intuitively that this is the game they want to play, and this is the game we all need to be playing these days to connect, to build a relationship, to build community, to deepen those relationships, to build safety and trust in one's tribe. Uh, the idea of building a tribe that's not tribal, in other words, that's not exclusive but inclusive, that doesn't label others to be them and the good guys to be us. That's not what we want to do. It's a universalist type of ethic that we're pursuing. And so, therefore, when I choose people, I'm happen to be um, have the blessing of living in one of the most diverse cities in the world, called New York City. And so, I make a point of not only having a male-female balance, but doing my best to have a sexuality balance, the whole spectrum of sexuality and queerness, and an age balance. People really appreciate having younger people and older people. We've had as young as 23. I really don't like going younger than that. I wouldn't. I would never have somebody under 21. Sorry if under 21s are listening. If you're listening to this broadcast, I'm sure you're mature enough to participate, but partly for legal reasons, I can't have somebody under 21. But we've had as young as 23 and as old as 81. And people really appreciate the age variation.
Hmm. So we have this intentional group of people coming together
Yes.
to take MDMA. Um, is this just a party? Like, how does this differentiate from a party of people that just happens to be a private party? Like, how is this group role different than a party ultimately?
It's a good question. I've never thought of the distinction, and there is a distinction. A party is it doesn't necessarily have an intention except to just have fun and celebrate something or someone's birthday or an event or New Year's Eve or something. Um, and people can often do whatever substance they want and get inebriated or off their out of their minds um, or the conversation can stay terribly superfluous and shallow. There's no intention at a party to build community necessarily. Here there is. Party is a word I would never use to describe what we're doing. So here the intention is more serious. It's fun, but it's serious fun. And the intention is, as you put it, to bond, to connect, to build community, and to help each of us feel like we belong to something bigger than ourselves.
Hmm. What's the value of that? Like, I mean, people are going to infer, oh yeah, belonging. That sounds like it's valuable. But then, what do you see as the value that creating containers like this and this sense of building community and so on and so forth, what do you see as the value in this for the individual and that community?
How much time do we have? Do we have uh, we have like 10, 12 hours, right?
Yeah, at least.
Okay, good. So the value of, on a personal level, um, studies have shown, research has shown that when you feel connected, when you feel like you belong with people, when you have vibrant social connections, you are healthier physically, healthier mentally, and you live longer. Interpersonally, we are at a time, as I'm sure your audience is aware, of an epidemic of loneliness and alienation and suspicion of one another. I don't think it's as bad up where you are in the wonderful refuge known as Canada. Um, it's a real refuge for North Americans. But here in the U.S., these things are rampant, and I'm please excuse me for going there right now, but something happened in the last week in this country, which I'm sure you're all aware of, where a controversial figure was gunned down. And it makes me upset, not because I liked him. It doesn't matter what I think of him. It doesn't matter what any of us think of Charlie Kirk. The fact that he was gunned down like that is scary
Yeah.
and horrific. I don't care if you liked him or hated what he stood for. It doesn't matter. As a people, we need to be horrified by this. And these acts of murder with guns invariably are committed by young, usually white men who are alienated, often addicted to radicalizing YouTubes or video games, and uh, they're isolated, and they want a sense of purpose, meaning, and belonging. They're hungry for that, whether they know it or not, and they're suffering from the lack of it. And they are, of course, in many cases, are very dangerous. So we live at a time where this is not just an issue for sociologists. This is an issue for every concerned citizen, where it's gotten to the point where things are dangerous and out of hand. So often in nature, close to the poison grows the antidote. So just as these times are developing like they are now and getting more and more dangerous, and we all know it, and I think many of us are kind of freaked out about it. I am. At the same time, we're in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance, which I see as the antidote. It might not be the only thing that can help us. It might not be a cure all, but MDMA is, I'm telling you, if I had to invent a medicine that could help bring people together in a good way, I couldn't have done a better job than with MDMA.
Hmm. Yeah, I really hear what you're saying there. I'm not sure about the evidence around video games influence, but certainly, the internet and the polarization. What's the other word? Like bringing someone into radicalization that these
Yeah,
internet communities can create for sure.
yeah,
Um, and I guess what you're pointing at here is like building these kinds of intentional group roles are opportunities to, we'll talk about like larger group roles that include, dynamics of demographic participation, but even inside of communities to have, or smaller communities having these opportunities to utilize this. I believe you've previously called it like the chemical of connection to
yes,
help, facilitate a deeper sense of being with each other, knowing each other, being seen by each other, seeing each other, and sharing experiences of profound closeness that absolutely continue afterwards, at least in the memory, if not in the practice of what it feels like to be with that person afterwards and know that you're participating in a community that includes that person.
It's not only in the memory, it's in the body, because MDMA is an embodied experience. You feel it in your chest, you feel it all over, and you can bring that feeling with you when it's done with a process we call anchoring. But yes, there are psychedelic people, we call ourselves psychonauts everywhere. I don't care if you live in a town with 100 people, you're not the only psychonaut in that town. And to get together with the others, as we're always, we have as a phrase in our minds, find the others, to do that and to bond with them in this way can supercharge the feeling of community and belonging and togetherness. And that's what we've done here in New York. Now, here in New York, of course, there are a lot of people and a lot of psychonauts, but I've developed this corner of the community here in New York, a few hundred people that have bonded over time. We don't have a name for ourselves. It's kind of a tribe. Um, uh, I don't want to have a name for ourselves because if you call ourselves a name, then there's the in people and the out people, and I don't want that. Um, but we've built this community here over the years, and people can build it wherever they are. And I encourage people to do so. And I'm happy to give my protocol away to anyone who wants the details, because I really believe that this is a way of, uh, for any of your listeners who want to do this, it can be a source of not only belonging and community and bonding, but joy, great joy. And I got to tell you, I'll be honest with you. I do things like this for a combination of altruistic and selfish reasons. The altruism is, I mean, it's a lot of work to put something like this together because it's all around the details. It's a labor of love, and I give it all away. And I'll give away the protocol to anyone who wants to learn about it. But the selfish part is I get such joy and such a surplus of gratitude from people in my life now, because people they look around. All my friends look around at who their friends are and the people that they have dinners with and go to parties with and go to events with and just talk to over Signal with, and they realize, oh, these are people we met through Charlie and Shelley. All their best friends they met through us, so they're very grateful to us, which feels wonderful. It just feels very wonderful and gratifying and meaningful to me. It's really a meaning-filled life that I'm leading by spearheading these groups.
Hmm. And something that clearly the participants are getting a lot of value out of, as
Oh
you
my
said,
goodness!
right?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
And the value, James, ripples out because if a parent comes and has this wonderful, beautiful, transformative experience with other people, that parent goes home and the kids feel it and the spouse feels it and if you have two parents come and and these people uh, to all whose lives they touch, the light ripples forward and the good feeling and the feeling of kind of an emotional and spiritual generosity ripples forward into these lives, and so the benefit ripples into the world at large. And so what I've been doing has been doing a lot of good that I'll never get to see because I'll never get to see all those ripples, but I know it's happening. And that, as I say, is very meaningful. It's my small way of changing and helping to repair the world.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we can
So,
all do this. And anyone can do this.
Anyone can choose to build these
That's
kinds of
right.
events if they wanted
That's
to.
right.
Yeah. So let's get into the practicalities of it then. So
Okay.
you've already talked about safety and these kinds of things. Let's see, where do I have this on my list here? All right, yeah. Don't talk about safety yet. I'm going to get you to go back into it because I have some specific
Okay.
questions of it. You talked about some of the demographics you like to sort of have included in these kinds of groups.
Hmm.
So intergenerational, gender balance, diverse mix of orientation and identity.
And
Um,
racial spectrum too. Yes.
right. So now that's with respect to building these larger events. And I want you to hold that in mind as well. But I'm going to ask you the question of who do you choose to invite? And I'd like you to include offering like an answer to that question as if the person listening isn't going to be building a massive event with a lot of different people from different walks of life, that they're likely first going to start applying it in zone 0 and zone 1 of their life, but how do you choose who to invite, and how do you choose who not to invite?
That's a great question and a very important one because we learned early on that one wrong person can sour the event for everyone. A person who is, and as I like to put it, James, just because you like somebody or even love them doesn't necessarily mean they're right for this event. If a person is very wounded, going through a terrible time, and is going to probably call and need to call a lot of attention to themselves during this experience, don't invite them. The whole day will be about them. And that's not what this is really about. It's not a healing ceremony.
Sure, there could be some value to that in a different context, but this is not the
Exactly.
kind of role that you're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. But this is not when we're doing something that's serious fun. Somebody who's an ego tripper, even if you love them because they're wonderful and funny and all this, but they love to espouse and proclaim all that they know about everything. Not the right person for this experience. Somebody with a personality disorder, somebody who is going through a crisis. Unfortunately, not the right person for this experience. If you invite somebody and they accept the invitation and they have a crisis that week, of course, I mean they can come. But otherwise, and you heard in this broadcast from a past broadcast about how Shelley healed in a group experience because her son had died 9 days before the experience. So great healing can be had. But in general, you don't want to invite somebody in great need or with a great ego. And you do want to invite people who you sense will get along. And I say we've learned this the hard way over the years. We had somebody who had, I don't know, I have a problem with people who can't stop talking.
Well, I
um,
fall into that camp sometimes.
well, I guess I do too. I mean, I'm talking a lot here today, but I'm talking about people, and we've all known somebody who just seem to compulsively gab a lot, and they just can't stop talking. And that's not the kind of person you want in this group because everyone's going to be with this heart opening medicine and too soft hearted to tell them to shut up. Um, they could ruin it for everyone. Um, we had another person who was a very well-meaning, good person, but just had no social skills. I think they were on the spectrum in a way, and people on the spectrum can be fine. But this person was on the
Fine in
spectrum.
the group, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can be fine in the group. It depends on the person. Everyone's different. But this person was on the spectrum in the way that he was really inappropriate with the women. He didn't really understand boundaries, physical boundaries, so we couldn't and wouldn't invite him back. Um, and so, and boundaries is a very important part of the ground rules that we set at the beginning, which I can go into
Yeah, I will
as
ask you
well.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So this is who to invite, and I suppose, you said people who you think are going to get along. Another thing to consider is like who you invite. Yeah, needs to include people that you want to be closer to.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. So people, follow your heart in this, and in the way of like, if you want to be closer to people, because you're going to tend to get closer to these people during the experience. And obviously, you can choose who to spend time with and who not to spend time with. Even as a leader, you're free to mill around and make choices about how to spend the time. But normally, you want people that you like or are curious about and want to get to know better.
Mhm. Now, I didn't think to ask this question in advance, but it's coming up now since we're kind of gearing it to the listener who might be interested in starting something themselves. I mean, of course, we're not recommending anyone, acquire or consume any illegal drugs. This is if they feel inclined, and we're hoping to provide them information to do so safely and effectively. Um, but I'm also thinking that, like, how many people? Because my sense is that the more people you have on two things. You have this sort of diversification of the number of people who can take responsibility in the room if responsibility is needed to have, but you also increase the complexity and potential of things going awry.
Yes.
So, us, like, I suppose anything past two now becomes a group, and anything past what certain number does it start to become uh, unreasonably unmanageable for a single person to be the kind of like main
Okay.
holding person.
Okay. So you said the right word there about single person. So when we had 75 people in the park, I'm glad I was intelligent enough to realize I needed to cede control. And so I picked three other people. And so we had a total of four circles that were in eyesight of each other, but not in earshot of each other. So we didn't interrupt each other. And so four circles going at the same time of around 15, 20 people each circle. And that went well. And then people milled around and, people just formed bigger groups as time went on or went back to their circle, their little space in the park. Nothing went awry. But what does get lost, of course, with the larger group is a sense of intimacy, and a feeling at the end of the day of like, oh, I wanted to speak to this person and that person and that person, and I just didn't have the time because there's so many people here. So the smaller the group, you have more intimacy and more of a chance to go deeper with more people. So, but with a larger group, there's more excitement and more energy. So the larger and the smaller, each have their advantages.
Hmm. So, other than who to invite, or not to invite, and how many of those individuals, what are some other contingencies? Because, when you're talking about who to invite and who to not invite, you're trying to, without having too much of an authoritarian hand, you're trying to create a kind of a space. You're creating a container
Yes.
within which you're hoping for this sense of connection, sort of maybe spontaneous healing, but like connection,
Yes.
growth, community, togetherness, belonging, to emerge inside of this container facilitated by this beautiful molecule, and the intentions of the group intentions there.
Yes.
What other contingencies do you use to protect that particular space? For
Hmm.
example, like RSVPs. You talked about different molecules. Like, does everybody take the substance? Can people invite a friend? Like these, what other contingencies do you try to maintain that you have found really help protect this container?
Okay. Well, um, first of all, whenever I'm emailing anybody, it's best to use an encrypted email, which is Proton Mail. It's best to use that. If you're emailing, or if I'm emailing a bunch of the people who have RSVP'd, or just to invite the people, I'm always using BCC to protect people's privacy. Even if they know each other, I don't care. I'm always using BCC, and people appreciate that. When they RSVP, I make note of that, of course, and I make plain that, first of all, no surprises. You can't bring anybody that I haven't vetted. You can't bring anybody that I haven't personally said you can bring them. I need to be in control of that. People trust me. And if you're going to run a group, people, assume that people are going to trust you, and you need to be in control of that. Don't be lackadaisical about it. You don't want anybody there who's a surprise. Also, no, what's the word when you don't, no onlookers. Everyone who comes must participate. If somebody comes to one of my events who's RSVP'd, and they show up and they say, thank you for inviting me. I'm not feeling right about doing the medicine today. It just doesn't feel right, but I'm here. I wanted to support you and everyone else here. I would say, thank you for telling me this. Thank you for taking care of yourself and not doing what you don't want to do. And I'd invite them to leave. Everyone must participate who's there with the medicine, and only that one medicine called MDMA. And everyone has to agree to that. And that helps create a safe space, a safe container, a safe
Now,
set for the day.
I'm I'm going to ask about this because I assume the reason I'm going to ask a clarification on this is that you've got these onlookers, or I think bystanders is the term you used in the protocol email that you sent me. Uh, What about having someone there as a sober sitter? And by this I mean, especially if you're doing something new,
Hmm.
if you don't have even one person who is sober in the space to decide, hey, I think we actually genuinely need to call 911, or I can drive this person to the hospital, or I
Hmm.
can respond to something or other, right?
Hmm.
Mind you, uh, experienced people on MDMA, they might be totally in, like deep in the space, and assuming they're not too far out in there, can generally respond with a pretty good degree of competence to a lot of
Hmm.
issues, including quite traumatic ones.
Hmm.
Um, but when you say no bystanders, no onlookers, does that include having someone who is explicitly there as, I assume, somebody who would be very experienced with MDMA? So they know the vibe, they know how to not interfere with it, and they know how to participate in it, but they're there explicitly as a sober sitter.
It's a good question, and the answer is no. Um, I want everyone there to know that anyone there is in the same place in their body, and in their chemical being as everyone else. And I think what you're saying, I wouldn't advise against, because to have a sober person there is always might be a good idea. We've done this for 20 years, and we've never had a problem. That's not to say that there couldn't be a problem like you just described that could arise. And wouldn't it be best then to have a sober person? I guess one reason is because Shelley is a retired nurse, and a critical care nurse. She knows the human body and emergencies backwards and forwards. She saved a lot of lives in the hospitals that she worked in. So I know she's there. So that helps my sense of safety and other people's sense of safety. So it's. I'm not saying it's a bad idea to have a sober person there. We've just never done it that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I know I offer people connect with me to have consultation on various choices that they might make leading up to a psychedelic or MDMA type session for perspectives on advice and or like safe contacts and so on and so forth. And one of the things I recommend is, like at the very least, if you're new to this and you're uncertain, to have someone on hand who you could call. They might not be there, but they know that at any given point in the next 6+ hours, they might get called and they need to arrive, and they need to be able to arrive within 10 to 15 minutes in order to respond to a crisis. And that sometimes alone can be enough to at least help create a sense of safety, if not genuinely
Absolutely.
have established as a protocol in emergency.
Absolutely. Always a good idea. Absolutely. Yes. You have to understand, we're doing this in New York City. Um, we're not getting stoned on top of it. If there's an emergency that arose, we'd be, or I would be clear-headed enough to deal with it, and to know what to do. Shelley would know what to do for the person, but um, if 911 needs to be called, I would have no hesitation in calling 911. And just make sure everyone hides their stash. But I would have no hesitation in calling an ambulance if needed. Thank God it hasn't been needed up to this point for us.
Hmm. Now, I guess actually I'm going to add this to my safeties list here. Okay, so no plus ones unless they're vetted in advance. I assume this means like you expect people to RSVP, so you know if they're coming. They agree that
Yes,
everyone is consuming the molecule.
yes,
You've already. Well, I'll ask you about safety in a bit, but you've already talked about testing. I'll ask you about dosing in a bit. You've already mentioned that. Um, MDMA is the only substance used. Chances are that you're going to have, or people who are hosting this are going to have at least one, perhaps more people who are first timers
yes,
to MDMA.
yes.
What are your thoughts on how do you help a first timer get a sense of this? Is two questions. Like, one, how do you help a first timer get a sense of what they're getting into? And two, how do you think it's appropriate to navigate supporting that person as a first timer while also maintaining the role? I mean, ROLE, not ROLL, the
Uh-huh.
role as the host of this event that has multiple people
Yes.
that aren't necessarily just that first timer.
The beautiful thing is the type of people who are geared to or drawn to this type of experience are generally very well-meaning, lovely people. So when we convene a circle at the beginning before we drop the medicine, I say, "Are there any first timers here? Any people here who have not done this medicine?" And if a person or people raise their hands, I say, "Okay." So if you get, first I'm going to tell you what to expect, which is that within any psychedelic experience, the climb can be the most challenging part. You might feel a little woozy, even a little queasy. You want to just lie down and might want to cocoon, as we call it, for a little while, just be in your own space, and understand that this will pass in anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. It'll pass and you're going to hit a lovely plateau. However, if you're in need of assistance, you want assistance, who here in the circle right now, by a show of hands, would be willing to show up for that person? And invariably,
Every other
three
person
quarters
puts
of
their
the
hand up.
people
Yeah,
raise their hand
yeah.
because we've all had a first time. We know what that can be like, and where people are more than happy to be there for that person, which puts that person or those newcomers at ease, of course. Uh, and and every now and then I've had a newcomer who was saying, "Well, needs my attention," or needs somebody else's attention, saying, "This is happening, that's happening," or in some cases, "Nothing's happening. What do I do?" Which we can go into. Um, but for me to be able to just put them at ease and let them realize they need to be patient and to be patient with the climb, and the discomfort will go away, and use your breath as an anchor to keep you anchored in your body, and breathe through whatever anxiety you might be feeling. You will feel like you're in control throughout this entire experience. The queasiness will end, and it's a very user friendly medicine. You're not going to hallucinate, and you will feel in control.
How many first timers are too many first timers for this kind of, group context that you're talking about
Huh.
relative to
Yeah.
experienced
I would
participants?
say uh, there should be no more than 33% of the people. One third of the people should be, no more than one third should be first timers.
Is this a ceremony? Why or why not?
I don't call it a ceremony because that brings up images of very serious healing or psychotherapy, usually just a healing ceremony, which is usually associated with plant medicine these days, psilocybin or 5-MeO or ayahuasca and all those wonderful medicines, for the purpose of healing. It's not for the purpose of bonding, and by and large. Certainly, ayahuasca communities and other communities can be very tight knit, people going through that experience. But basically, I don't know what it was like for anybody else who's listening, but when I was doing ayahuasca, I was sitting or lying down on a floor, with blankets, and everyone was to one side of me and the other side of me, and we were all in our respective individual silos.
Right. Private
Were
experiences shared. Yeah.
very private experience that was shared, and we might talk about it at the end, and compare notes. But it was not a community experience. It was not about community. It was about individual healing. And this is about intra healing, in intrapersonal healing, between people, and connection between people. It is the chemical that connects.
Hmm. And theoretically, lots of different variations of ayahuasca ceremonies might exist, but I think by default, generally they are. There's very much like in a ceremony, everyone's participating. There's varying degrees of sort of like interaction with each other, but it's generally being led by a facilitator.
Yes.
And it doesn't sound like this is facilitated in any way other than having people who are, responsible setting the context, but then otherwise everyone is a participant and there's no sort of anyone at the front of the room. Um, yeah.
Well, so let me just talk about that. I will have exercises during the course of the day.
Well, pause for a second. I want to ask you about that in a
Oh,
bit,
okay.
like exactly
Okay.
what you do together.
Yeah. Oh,
I
okay.
want to get a
Okay.
little bit more of like a step. We started with sort of the premises of like what and why, and now
Yes.
we're getting into the sort of baselines of the how, the sort of structures of the how, and then the
Okay.
specifics in a second.
All right. Well,
Um,
if we're going to go back, then can I talk about ground rules that I set?
uh, yes, I'm going to ask you about safety protocols, and then I'm going to ask you about opening agreements. But
Okay.
first, I'd like to ask you about what kind of environment is best for this. And you talk about doing it in a park. There's a
Hmm.
certain degree of both safety and risk in a park.
Hmm.
Other options could be in a private home. There are certain degrees of safety and risk in that. But what do you think, in a general way, is the right kind of environment for this?
In a general
And
way. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting
and
you.
I was going to say, what should be included and what should be excluded?
Oh, well, as far as in a general way, a person's home, you can't get safer than that. As long as there are no other roommates around or anything like that, or anyone who's not participating. Like if you're doing it in your home and your spouse is not participating, unless they're in the room by themselves all day long, they shouldn't be coming in and out. No, there shouldn't be interruption by anyone who's not a full participant. So, but I know no dogs running around who are going to need a lot of attention or who are going to get excited, unless it's just a loving dog or a loving cat. That can be wonderful, of course. Um, but indoors in somebody's home, especially for a smaller event, is great, and I think the most protected environment. We do it in the park because we have the advantage of being in New York City, where anonymity is part of the ethic of being in New York on the street or in a park. Nobody bothers you. Nobody even cares about you if they don't know you. And there's an advantage of that. No one's gawking at you. So we know we're safe.
Hmm. And in terms of included or excluded like elements of the environment,
Elements of the environment, like what? I mean, certainly, we want people to turn their phones off for the day. No, no screens at
I was
all.
going to say TV off. Yeah.
Uh, And however, we might have music, but music that I supply, that somebody else can bring dance music if people or some people are in the dancing mood. That can be great. I love to dance, but I have to understand that if you're indoors and you're dancing, then what about the people who don't want to dance and who want to talk? They might be drowned out by the music, so you have to be considerate about that. Um, Also, we have a chill space dedicated each time, whether it's inside, indoors, or outdoors, where if you go in that room or if you go by that tree, that's your indication to everyone else that you don't want to be spoken with. It's a chill space that you can go to be alone, because sometimes people want to just withdraw and be in their own space for a while, and that's fine. But we do have music that I program. That's background music. That's very soft and sweet music, exotic or trip hop or Buddha bar, or has different types of
Something that
things.
doesn't force the energy up, but doesn't put a ceiling on the energy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about out in the park? Maybe a different question, but at home, much more accessible. What about soft things, tactile things,
Oh,
plushies or pillows or blankets or
we haven't had
mood
that.
lighting? Yeah.
We've had toys. There are toys of that they use at raves, like this kind of I don't have it handy here, but a kind of slinky that goes up and down your arm,
Oh yes. Yeah.
um, or a thing for your that can scratch your head, or your back. Um, tactile, tactile toys and soft things like you're describing are great. This is a very tactile medicine, and anything for the senses, for the sights, the sounds, any touch, um, and we should talk about touch, by the way.
As a part of the, I assume that would be a part of the agreements that in your.
Exactly,
Okay, so we'll
exactly.
get there. I
Okay,
promise.
okay.
Um, what should people bring for themselves? Right. So this is like what the host could encourage people to bring, but
Hmm.
maybe someone's listening and they're like, "Oh, I've been invited to something like this." What should they bring for themselves?
Uh, a water bottle. If there are many people there, they should label the water bottle. You want to be properly hydrated throughout the experience. If we're in the park, we have some people bringing gallons of water. If you're at home, obviously you have your own source of water. And Cushions, and a chair if you want it, a folding chair and for the park, or if people if it's in somebody's home, they don't have enough seating. You might want to tell people to bring something to see to sit on, and anything that they can bring that can support them. We encourage people to bring um, uh, um, gum for themselves, although I supply gum, because
And that's because there can be some jaw tension with
exactly,
the stimulating effects of MDMA. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And we invite people to bring light snacks. It's not the type of medicine that makes you hungry and you're going to want to gorge on anything. But light snacks, like fruits and vegetables, are great. Or chips and cookies and that sort of thing is great. All of that's really good.
So, and I suppose also variable clothing options,
Oh yes,
things that are
if
easy.
in the park because um, the the medicine really can help your body temperature fluctuate. So you want layers, regardless of how warm or cold it is. You want layers.
And comfortable layers.
That's right. That's right. And might want to bring a journal too. I don't tell people to bring journals, but some people do because they want to be off by themselves for a while and write, and that's great.
Or they have a very particular thing they want to make sure they remember, so they take a note of.
That's right. Yes.
So let's get into safety protocols now.
Okay.
You talked about so basic safety protocol being that everyone's supply is properly tested, both for purity, contaminants, so that they know that what the dose they're getting is, and that
Yes.
it is only what they're expecting.
Yes.
Um, you also talked about the sort of safety protocol of using encrypted messaging services for communication and organization. Um, what are some other safety protocols that you would suggest as best practices?
So uh, the first thing I do when people are called into the circle when we convene is I set up ground rules, the set for the day, the context for the day. And the way I roll it out is that the first and most important ground rule is confidentiality. Who is here today is only our business. You can share your experiences that you have today with whoever you want. You can share, um, uh, what you learned with whoever you want, but you don't quote anybody by name unless you get their explicit, sober permission. And so, and then I
And you don't
say,
share other people's stories, I suppose.
that's right.
Right?
Don't say anybody's stories that could identify them. And then I say, is everyone okay with this? And I make sure that everyone is raising their hands. And then I say, okay, thank you. Put your hands down. Does anyone have a question or concern about this? And only when I look around carefully and make sure that nobody's raised their hands for that, do I then declare, okay, we now have a confidential circle. And that helps people, sometimes even on a subliminal basis, feel safe. The second most important protocol is boundaries. Respect them. This medicine melts boundaries. It melts your ego's boundaries for the day. And you really have to be careful about respecting other people's boundaries. And so if you feel like hugging somebody, you have to seek and get their explicit permission. And if you hear hesitation or see hesitation in their voice or in their body language, that means no. And what I'm really doing here, James, is giving a dog whistle to the men in the space because we've had instances of men being inappropriate with the women. Not anything egregious, but something that would make the women feel uncomfortable or icky, and we'd never ever want that. I'm
I want to.
telling.
I hear that, and I completely understand why. I also want to add that it is entirely possible for a female to be a little over
Yes,
expressive on a male. They might be
absolutely.
less likely to later feel it was a violation
Hmm.
because of just like perhaps inherent power dynamics or inherent sense of sort of like relative danger or safety. But I want to speak to that too, not in any way to take away from the value and the importance of what you were just speaking to.
Thank you. That's well put. I appreciate you saying that. So. So I tell people to respect boundaries. I tell people you agree for the day, no sexual touching, even if you're here with your partner, because it can be distracting to everyone else. It can be like an energy suck to everyone else. No sexual touching for the day. Uh, but cuddle puddles that organically form are fine and encouraged if people really want to participate in that. And invariably, many people do. Not everyone, of course, but people do. And that can be the most luxuriously joyful way to spend the time. I find it to be. I'm like a touchy feeling kind of guy. But those are the major ground rules that I put out.
What about pharmacological interaction? And by that I mean like not everyone can safely take MDMA for like the really the mechanical reason of something else that they're taking might totally remove their ability to have the experience or negatively impact their sort of like danger
Okay, well,
profile.
this goes back to the vetting process and me choosing the people and making sure that they are properly screened. And so we're going back to the more of the context now of vetting people, and there's a screening process. And so, are you pregnant? Uh, do you suffer from a epilepsy or that type of seizure disorder? Um, are you HIV positive and on certain drugs to fight that can be contraindicated? Are you on an SSRI treating depression or SNRI or MAOI? All these things are contraindicated. And means that you really can't participate. The problem with people on SSRIs, it's not. We've learned as of late that, and I don't mean just me and my group, but the whole space has learned that it's not dangerous to do MDMA if you're doing Prozac or another SSRI. You just won't feel it. So it's going to be very frustrating.
Mm.
So you need to wean off beforehand with the help of the physician that was prescribing in the first place. Otherwise, you're just not going to feel it unless you do a real mega dose, and then it gets into
There are other
some
dangers involved
risk.
there.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But these are I don't want somebody who has really suffered from suicidal ideation or homicidal or has been suffered from a pathological paranoia or schizophrenia. These people cannot be part of this, unfortunately.
Yeah, they would need a different context to ensure they can participate
That's
safely, which
right.
is not this context. Uh,
Exactly.
how do you manage the concern of people wandering off?
Oh, well, I tell people, please, especially if we're in the park, please stay in the space. If you need to go wander off to the bathroom, oh, that's one thing, and then come right back. But if you want to take a walk, tell me, so I don't worry about you.
Sure. Or maybe
Um,
take someone with you
or take
if
someone
you're not a
with
place to be.
you,
Yeah.
and yes, it's always good to take someone with you. Absolutely, especially if you're a first timer.
hmm Okay, so let's get into the more of the specifics. You start the role with an opening circle. It includes asking who here's a first timer, who here can support the first timers. If they have any issues, we have these agreements. Is there anything else? Well, I guess two things like what is the function of having this opening? And is there anything else that you think is best practice to include in the opening of the role?
You mean, is there anything else that I mentioned in the opening?
Is there anything else that you mentioned in the opening? And as also, what is the value of having an opening statement beyond setting these agreements?
Well, the value is to just help people, put them at ease and let them know just implicitly that I've taken care of and thought of and are speaking to all these details. That puts people at ease when they sense that. Um, as far as, let me take a look at, see if there are any things that I haven't really covered that are part of this. I don't think so. Um, if I do, I have it all on notes because at my age, I don't trust my memory to remember all these things. So I have notes in front of me when I'm in front of the circle, and I don't care because I want to make sure I hit all the points. Um, see, yes, and then you agreed to not do any other substance until I close the circle that day. By the way, we've had an incident lately. We had in New York. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country. In New York, there's an infatuation with ketamine, and it does a lot of people a lot of good, especially in clinical situations, and it's especially good for dealing with depression when applied clinically. But people use it recreationally, and they love to do it in tandem with MDMA. And I had to throw somebody out
Hmm.
of our group uh, back in May, who we caught doing ketamine after being told in no uncertain terms. Everyone was told that we're doing MDMA only, and at first he denied it, and then he admitted it, and then he begged to stay. And I said no. And I ascertained that he could handle the street and that he was not going to be in trouble by
Yeah, he
leaving.
was safe to leave. Yeah.
He was safe, but said no, staying would violate the integrity of the group, and I'm sorry, I have to ask you to leave. And he has not been invited back, or will not be invited back until, because he has a problem, and I want to make sure he deals with his problem. He's really ketamine has a potentially dark side, a dependency potential, and so we had to deal with that. Um, and let's see if there's anything else. Um, I have I'll find it on my phone. I have a little portable speaker that I use, and um, find this playlist. Excuse me. And I have my Bluetooth connected to the speaker, and I say to people, um, this is something I do during the course of the day. When you hear this bell, wherever you are, and whatever you're doing, and whatever you're talking to, whoever you're talking to, fall silent. Close your eyes and be silent, and that will last for 5 minutes. I will time it for 5 minutes, at the end of which I will play that bell again. And I do this 2 or 3 times during the course of the day. It's one of the things I do. And it's a little exercise. It's just periods of silence, and people really appreciate it because it's such a versatile medicine, and you can get lost in the verbal connection with people, which is can be wonderful, of course, because it can be a profound connection. But you can forget about your own body and what's going on inside of you, and this brings you right back to yourself. And people really appreciate that. So I tell them at the beginning, you're going to hear this bell a few times. And you agree to not leave the park or the building until the close of the circle, until I close the circle at the end of the day. And that's it. Those are all the protocols that I put out. And then we have a little ritual around dropping the medicine. We have a poem by a local poet laureate named Rich Olaf, who wrote this wonderful, some could call it a poem, some could call it a prayer, that we use to begin holding the medicine in one hand and listening to him reading or somebody reading the poem. And I'm happy to share this poem with anybody
Yeah, please do.
who
Yeah.
wants it. It's quite beautiful, welcoming it into your body and your being, and it's a beautiful poem. And then we all take the medicine at the same time.
So, what else do you do together? You talked about like people like being invited to pair off, not in their partners. You've got the gong the gong sound silence practice. Is there like I mean, once you're in the space and you've taken in the medicines, come on, like what do you do? Like what do you do together?
Okay, so let me preface that by telling people right now, especially if you was out there listening to me, you want to lead such experience. Yes, you want to plan a few exercises. You need to keep them optional. The gong isn't optional with the way I do it, but the other exercises should be optional. But you have to understand less is more. Don't fill up the space with exercises. You don't need to. It's too much work for you. And people are what's really working during the course of the day is not what you've planned. It's the context you've set. It's the
Mm,
medicine. Let the medicine do its magic. When people will just organically fall together in groups of twos, threes, fours, and fives, talking and connecting or hugging and cuddling. And afterwards, that's what they point to, the physical and the verbal connection that is the most meaningful for people, not the exercise. The exercises are meant to facilitate these things, but the people connecting with each other is really that's where the magic is. And most of the time, my job is to just let that happen. But one thing I do offer each time without fail is a healing circle, and that's optional. It's for people who are experiencing a loss or a challenge in their life. They need to be heard. And for anybody else who wants to just be there for them. And I call the circle usually after the boost. We can talk about boosting later. Um, but after the boost, I call the circle together for anyone who wants, and I go off into another, several feet away, or if it was indoors, I'd go to another room with these people, and we use a talking stick, which is a Native American ritual, which means we have a stick of some sort, some object that feels right and maybe sacred. And the rule with the talking stick is only the person with the stick can talk. So in the healing circle, somebody has a stick, they can talk, and everyone else's job is simple. They just listen. No advice given unless somebody asks for advice, and usually people do not. Uh, Nothing, no crosstalk. People want to be heard when they're hurting. So our job is to listen and to receive them. And then when you're done talking, you put the stick down in the middle of the circle until somebody feels moved to pick up the stick for themselves. And that's how we run the healing circle. And that can last, depending on how many people and how deep it goes, it can last 30 minutes, it can last 2 hours. It's the heart of the day for many people who participate in the circle. So that's something I always do.
so all right, I'm going to ask you about dosing and redosing before I ask you about if nothing is happening, what then? Um, Everybody's taking the same substance. They're all taking that substance. Is everybody taking the same dose? Is
No.
it expected that people do you have a limit? Because, you know, the two people can take different doses. You might need more to go to the same pace that I'm going,
Hmm.
but it's also possible for me, for example, to take so much that I can't really participate anymore
Yeah.
because I'm too high,
Yeah.
and maybe So, with respect to dosages for people, individuals, and then also the question of redosing. Does everyone choose to redose? Does everyone choose to redose once? Is there an infinite sort of iteration of how often and how much people want to take more? It's a sort of like that broad camp of a question.
Yeah. And very important questions. I appreciate these questions. As far as it goes, people know if they're more or less sensitive or have a higher or lower tolerance to the medicine. If it's a new person, generally I'll give them the full standard dose, which is 120 milligrams. But sometimes people want, if they have a high tolerance, they know themselves, they might need 150, they might need 180. I basically trust people to take care of themselves if they're experienced. And the thing is with dosing, you can always take more, but you can't take less than what you've taken. So start low and go slow and be patient, especially if you're a first timer. And sometimes first timers are people who don't have much experience with the medicine will come to me and say, I'm not feeling anything. Say, okay, so how long has it been? Well, it's been an hour. Wait, until an hour and a half. And then an hour and a half. I'm not feeling anything. What we've learned is to spark the roll to come on, they need to raise their body temperature. So that can mean once did it up at an apartment in a loft up downtown in Manhattan, and the loft was on the second floor, and it was a long way to the first floor. So somebody came to me with this problem. I said, walk down the stairs and then walk back up the stairs as fast as you can, as fast as you healthily can. And they did. And by the time they were back up the stairs, they they were there. They were where they wanted to be. Raising the body temperature. You can also do that, of course, by putting a lot of blankets over you or layers or whatever. That tends to spark it. Um, and as far as redosing, known as boosting, is concerned, obviously it's optional. I don't make anybody boost, and I tell people, which is really true, that the boosting won't get you higher by and large. It will just make the whole thing last longer. Invariably, 90% of the people there, if not 100, want a boost. And I encourage that. I think it's great. But I also uh, discourage boosting more than once. And the reason is that MDMA, as people, your listeners are probably very aware, they might have suffered from this themselves, can be known to have a bad come down. Typically known as the Tuesday blues after the Saturday night rave. That's where the term Tuesday blues came from. It can happen days later. It can happen the day after of a physical and emotional come down. Boosting more than once will intensify the chance, will increase the chance of a bad energy or mood debt to pay on the other side. So I discourage boosting a second time. I don't disallow it because I'm not there to play policeman. I'm dealing with adults, and I'm not there to control people, except in terms of you can't do any other type of medicine.
Sure.
But as far as boosting, they're adults and they want to boost a second time, then they'll do it. And the first timer will generally ask me for advice, and I'll give it to them.
I mean, anecdotally, I had a friend of mine tell me about experiences they had in hosting these a role akin to this, and that there was multiple people that chose to do more than one redose, and that their sense of it afterwards was that it actually didn't it didn't give them what they wanted. What they
Yeah.
wanted was to be in the shared, they wanted the night to go on. But what ended up happening was they just felt more gritty and stimmy, and they
Mm,
ended up being gritty and stimmy and high well past the timeline that most other people were no longer in the space.
mm.
So
So
it
they were out of
actually
sync.
they went out of sync and actually took themselves out of the pocket that they were looking for.
Mm,
So there's some, and from what I understand, the higher your dose and the more frequent, more iterations of redose you have, the greater you increase the potential of neurotoxicity and stress on your brain, which
Correct.
is also not ideal.
Correct.
And I think
The
one
more
other
you'll get
point,
that
which
tight jaw or maybe hyperventilation,
mhm,
sometimes the eyes can go "Dung," like a nice nystagmus in the eye can
yeah,
fluctuate a little out of control. It's not dangerous, but it just means you've had plenty
mhm.
and you shouldn't
Something
do
else
more.
is I'm curious about, and we're almost finished here. I've only got a couple of questions after this. Um, I'm thinking about there's a certain window where you need to no, well, one needs to have a hit a certain dose level that for them puts them fully in the role, like they're in the space, they're there, and then there's a dose beyond that that they become so high that it can be incredibly pleasurable experience, but no longer serves the the intentions of the group. And I'm wondering if you can comment on that, and also
Yes.
on top of that about the inclination, especially if people are newer to it, to think that they need more than they actually do to get the value out of their experience.
Yes. The first person to turn me on to MDMA told me this is not like cocaine, where the more you do, the higher you're going to feel and more fantastic you're going to feel until you do too much and then you're flat on your back. But it's not like that. There's a sweet spot with MDMA. And by the sweet spot, I mean a place of for these type of experiences, not where you're dancing the night away at a rave. Then you might want more because you want the stimulating effects, and of course, it can be great for that. But if you want to relate to people, there's a sweet spot where you feel elation. I like how that word is what most of relating is or relation is. Um, you feel elation and connection. And I have found that past a certain dosage, you can do more, but you go right past the sweet spot to more of the neurotoxicity and the phenomena of being high, but not necessarily happy and elated. More is not necessarily better. And as a matter of fact, what I have found as a senior, I'm 76 years old, and starting about 10 years ago, I was realizing that I would climb and the medicine would, I'd zip right past the sweet spot to all the neurotoxicity and say, what's going on? Is it the medicine? Is it what's going on? So I'd say, okay, obviously I didn't do enough. So I did a higher dose the next time and it would happen faster. So I said, well, should I do less? I don't understand this. So I started doing less and less and less. Nowadays, I do 65 milligrams, and it
Wow,
works like
that's a
a
low dose.
charm.
Wow.
It's a low dose, but it works like a charm, and it's age related. Rick Doblin, who's a friend of mine, he concurred. He said, "Look, as we get older, we get more sensitive to all medicines," and I found that to be true. And so I do 65, and it's like doing it for the first time. It's fabulous. But everyone has to find their sweet spot, and usually uh, to limit yourself to that standard 120 dose for most people, and to limit yourself to one dose and one boost. And by the way, the boost, which I didn't say, is generally half the amount of the initial dose. So a boost is generally 60 milligrams. Some people do 75, and that can be okay, but no more than that.
How and when do you close the roll?
Well, I, I close the roll as we're coming down, basically, because I not want to encourage people to keep boosting. And in the park, it's when the sun is starting to go down. If it's at home, and when when people are generally starting to come down, and they don't have to be all the way down, but when they're starting to come down, and there's uh, a term in show business that I learned from a musician. He said, "Always leave them wanting more." So I don't wait till they're all the way down and are ready to leave. No, there's still some chemical in the system. People are still a little high, and I call the circle back together. And I have a whole list of things that I go over. If people helped me during the day, um, uh, in the park, I have people go in advance a couple of hours before to secure the space. It's called the advance team. So I have them step into the circle and we applaud them. Anyone else who, if it's somebody's home and we want to express our gratitude, have them stand in the circle, we applaud them. I also teach them how to anchor the feeling in their body by closing their eyes and putting their hands where they're feeling the medicine the most and breathing and taking a moment to do that and tell them this is called anchoring. And you can call this feeling up, this wonderful feeling you have now of belonging and this wonderful glowing feeling in your chest that you might have. You can, if you're having a challenging time in the next several days or weeks or months, you can put your hand in that same spot and breathe into that and close your eyes. And the memory, the muscle memory, the physical memory of this will come back to you. That's called anchoring. And then I have integration, where I say, please don't leave this circle with anything unsaid. Anyone who wants to say anything positive or negative or anything that's bothering them or anything they want to say about the day, this is your turn. And I hand it over to people who want to speak one at a time. And then I point to little packets of supplements, 5-HTP and magnesium, with some instructions about how and when to take them over the next few days. If there's an after party, I announce the after party. And then we might do an angel wash
Okay.
as a way of ending the day. And an angel wash is where it works especially well if you have more than 6 people, um, 10 people or more. You just have people line up in 2 lines facing each other. And one at a time, somebody goes to the front and announces, and they say, energy or touch. And that's what I want. They say, you announce what you want, energy or touch, and you walk down the line between the 2 rows of people. And if you say energy, people are going to just send you energy as you walk down the line. Most people say touch because they're on MDMA. So, um, but you don't have to. And then so people can just gently touch them as they walk down the line. And this is often ecstatic for people. It's a wonderful way to connect in a physical way at the end of the day and bring that with you as you leave. And then we have a group photo. Anyone who does not want to be photographed, fine. They're the ones who take the photo. And I have a group photo which is only on my phone, and I assure people, of course, that I'm only going to send it out to the people who are here today with the understanding that they send it out to nobody else, and I send it out to nobody else. And we use it for integration purposes. I send it out several days later to help people integrate the experience. And finally, I ask people afterwards, several days afterwards, if they want to stay connected over Signal, which is the best encrypted app, much better than WhatsApp, with a signal chat group devoted to only the people who are here today. And people love to do that because they want to stay connected usually.
Hmm. And then how do you integrate these experiences as a community?
Over Signal.
Because
And
there's the
also,
journey, but then how
and
does it
what?
apply later? I said there's the journey and you have these incredible experiences
Yes,
with each other, but
yes.
then how, as a community, do you then carry forth these experiences into your life outside of it?
Well, that's the real question with an open answer. There's no set answer to that. People find their own ways. The way we find in the New York community, one of the signal groups we have for only for people who've done my experiences in the park or in an apartment over the years. One group we have for signal is called Come Together, and people put out notices of films or concerts or talks or whatever that they want other people in the group to come to. Either one a talk they're leading or they just want to go to events, so that they can have people in their community come to these events with them. That's a great way of integrating. The best part of integration is the community and taking advantage of the community. Journaling is another good way. A meditation practice is another great way. Therapy is another great way to integrate your experiences. But I think the best way is to keep coming together, even sober or in any way, with other people who've done the medicine. And it could be the people who are in your circle or just other psychonauts who understand what you've been through in this circle. And to keep getting together with people because these days, that's what we need. Community itself is the medicine.
Charley, it's been wonderful to have you again here on the show. I love speaking with you. I think I cherish what you're bringing into the world, and it's been a real pleasure having you again. For the listener who is not already familiar with your work or not already familiar with your book, where can people find out more about what you do? Where can they buy your book, Listening to Ecstasy, and all those important details?
Sure. It's very simple. Listening to Ecstasy is the name of the book. That's on Simon and Schuster's website or Amazon website. And people most seem to love the audio version because there's a cool narrator on the audio version, an old man who happened to have also written the book. Is the one who
I
narrates the
wonder who it
book.
is.
And people tend to like that version best, but the print version is also cool. Um, and if you want to get in touch with me or learn more about my work, go to listeningtoecstasy.com. You can contact me through that site. If you're interested in Rich Olaf's poem, please let me know. I'll send it to you. If you're interested in learning more about the protocols or having me help you develop your own local group, I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you again, Charley. It's been wonderful speaking with you. I'll make sure all of that's in the show notes to this episode at jamesdavidjesso.com. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, James. It's great being
And cut.
back.
And cut.
Okay.
Charley, after we finished recording the interview, just yesterday at least, relative to the recording
Yes.
time, who knows how far it's been since recording to release. But you got back to me and you said, "Wait a minute, there's something very important that I didn't say that I need to make sure is included in the interview." And so this is a little extra bonus here to make sure. So what was this really important thing that you wanted to, ensure was communicated to the
Yeah.
listeners?
Thank you, James. So, out of my desire to give away this protocol that I've developed over 20 years, and to ignite joy and a sense of unity and community everywhere I can. I started uh, this event. We did it in May, and again we did it, and um, we're calling it One Pulse. And what it is spreading it around the country and hopefully the world. So what happened recently is that as 20 of us were rolling happily in Brooklyn, others at the same time and across time zones were doing the same thing, following the same protocol in Santa Barbara, California, and near St. Louis, Missouri, and in Manchester, New Hampshire, and upstate New York, and as well as here in New York. And I also had friends gathering in Portugal, in Lisbon, where I helped spark that community a few years ago. And uh, what we did, we knew that we were all doing this same substance on the same day. And at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we all connected over Zoom. All the groups were on the screen and saw each other and on the Zoom screen and could wave to each other and speak to each other. And each group conveyed a blessing or a song or a poem that they offered the others. And it really was a joyous connection, knowing that we are all connected, that we might have differences as far as where we live or even how we live, but that we're really all one community. And there is a feeling of unity and belonging at this time in our world where such things are not to be taken for granted. So I just wanted to share that with your audience. I'm inspired by the idea and the potential for this to grow. And we'll be doing it again. We'll probably be doing it once a year. And so thank you for having me back just to add that because I think it's important and it feels like for me personally it's the most meaningful work I can do right now. It's really my way of making the most difference everywhere I can.
Hmm. And so to clarify, you're making an invitation to listeners who are curious on their own sort of merit and interest if they want to put together a group role, that there's a possibility that they could align it with several other groups around the world and do so at the same time as a part of this one pulse. Is that and they could contact you if they would like more information. Is that correct?
If they want more information, they can contact me at listeningtoecstasy.com.
Mhm. And what what is it about all of these groups like doing these journeys concurrently? What do you think, outside of the personal value of just for the individuals participating, do you have a sense that there might be like a larger value that might be happening beyond just the groups because of this sort of collective, sort of like intentional active, well, pardon the term, but like activation together?
Well, I don't know where what you're hinting at. Do you mean something like uh, spiritual or
Maybe.
this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know that on just a visceral level, because the medicine is also such an embodied experience, it really felt good and felt like just as with MDMA, I feel like yeah, I'm in my body, but I'm also like I'm not just an I. I'm a we, and there are a lot of us, and to know that everyone in my eyesight is doing the same medicine at the same time, and whether it's in the park. Right in front of my face, or it's over a Zoom screen around the country, or different parts of the world. is just a beautiful and meaningful thing for me, and I think for others too. And what the ripple effects are, I don't know, but I hope they're profound. I certainly think there's a potential for a profound ripple effect. And I believe in the whole idea of the 100 monkeys and the sense of critical mass. And if enough people get turned on in the right way with the right set and setting to psychedelics in general, MDMA perhaps in particular, things are going to shift in the world. They have to. That's one of my great hopes.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. That's one of my great hopes too.
Yeah.
And on that, let's end this sort of addendum, and I'll let me take it from here because the next voice people are going to hear is me on the outro. So,
Okay.
thanks, Charley.
Thank you, James, so much. Take care now.
Okay, that was episode 203 with Charley Wininger. If you'd like to follow up with Charley, please do reach out and contact him. If you want to get in contact with him and can't find his contact details, you can contact me via any of my socials, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know where else I am. Definitely Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, these places. Reach out to me. I'm sure you can find me. I make it not super easy to get directly into my inbox, but if you're looking to reach out to Charley, hit me up and I'll help make sure that you get connected with him. And I'll make sure there are links to connect with him in whatever fashion available in the description to this episode or at the show notes or in the show notes at jamesdavidjesso.com. Sorry, it's been an interesting day, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little wandering in my mind. As you heard at the beginning of the episode, if you'd like to help support the time, money, etc. that goes into producing this show, if you're finding value in it, you'd like to reciprocate that value, you can become a patron on Patreon, or you could leave me a one-time sort of tip of the hat in the form of $1 or so to my PayPal or my Ko-Fi. Links to that are in the description to this as well. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on, like I said, Instagram, Facebook. I think mostly I'm just on Instagram, but I also have a Telegram channel. I got a newsletter, and I also have a Substack. It's not ready yet, but you can follow me there, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Again, links are going to be in the description, and that's all. I hope that what you got out of this interview rewards and nourishes your life and your community and your sense of belonging in a positive way. And until the next episode of Adventures to the Mind, I've been your host, James Jesso. Take care and stay curious.